How's it going, everybody? So in this video, we are going to be debunking the medical medium in his video talking about why you shouldn't eat eggs and how eggs are some kind of grand conspiracy created by the pharmaceutical industry, and how if you eat eggs, you're going to get pathogens and disease. And as we react to this video, I'm going to be drinking 6 raw eggs, kind of blended in a little bit of coffee with a little bit of gelatin powder. Just so you can kind of see, I'm not lying here. I've been eating raw eggs for like 6-7 years now, and I actually feel better than I have in my life. But we'll get to that as we watch the video. This is going to be one hell of a video, a true banger. And I want to shout out one of my subscribers actually mentioned this video to me a couple months ago, so I'm sure they're watching. Go ahead and comment in the comments down below if you're watching this, and I'll pin your comment just so you get the credit that is deserved. Also, I just noticed after rewatching this video that my microphone sounds a little staticky, and I think it's just because this is like literally my first official video that I recorded using OBS Studio for reaction videos, and so there must be a setting on there that I need to mess with. So yeah, if my microphone sounds a little staticky and whatnot, just try to excuse it, because I guarantee you're going to laugh your ass off with this information I'm providing. And just, yeah, sorry about the microphone quality or whatever.
It's still a complete and total theory, a farce actually.
Hypothesis,
it's basically a ruse
not
played
theory.
on you, and I'll tell you why. It's to train you that you have a faulty body, that your sickness is your fault. The industry doesn't want you knowing these truths. The industry doesn't want you knowing any of that. The industry wants to keep you sick. That's how the money machine works.
This is an appeal to emotion. This is an appeal to emotion. Using your guilt and shame.
There's a big part of Big Pharma that's really dark that people are unaware of. That dark part of Big Pharma is 80, 90 years ago. They raise these viruses in labs using eggs as the virus's food. That's how it's done.
Okay, so we need him to cite research and prove that this is actually true. And also, just so everybody knows, this video, they're setting you up for an appeal to emotion, where basically they're using your own pain, frustration, guilt, and shame surrounding your struggles with chronic disease to try to leverage those emotions towards persuasion to his point. So he's trying to convince you that eggs are some kind of conspiracy against your health by using your emotions and your frustration with chronic illness. And obviously they're setting you up for like a conspiracy theory rather than actually using logic, rationale, and supporting it with evidence.
But in the end, you will get symptoms. Everybody does. No one's going to escape that unless they really know what to do for themselves.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, this guy's medical medium, basically his whole shtick is first of all, he doesn't have a medical degree, but he does talk about medical conditions, specifically autoimmune conditions, and claims that he's channeling this information through a spiritual medium, almost like, you know, some kind of supernatural angel or God or something is giving him this like heavenly wisdom, rather than just like using facts and logic and evidence from the scientific literature, or looking at people's experiences and how they heal diseases. This guy is literally claiming that he's channeling this through some kind of supernatural means. And he doesn't have a medical degree. Not that it matters.
The medical industry is involved with why eggs are bad. Not because they're out there talking about eggs being bad, but what happened is they were using eggs back years and years ago to raise bugs. So bugs are why we're sick.
Okay, so they supposedly, the freaking pharmaceutical industry did some kind of mad scientist type experiment, like Dr. Evil back in his lab, and they're like, they're creating bugs and feeding them eggs or something, like there's some kind of pathogenic parasite or something that can only survive eating eggs. And notice how he's saying literally they were raised on eggs, okay? So it sounds like he's implying the whole food form of egg, not a particular macronutrient from the egg, which would actually be more valid and make more sense. But no, they fed them eggs. That's important for later.
In order for pathogens to stay alive, they need food. And everybody has pathogens in their body. Everybody has pathogens in the...
Okay, so what he's trying to describe here is basically like yeast, for example. So like Candida albicans tends to consume actually starch, I believe, but also glucose and simple sugars. There's some evidence that suggests that Candida albicans might be able to survive on certain fat metabolites, but mostly sugar, the end product of carbohydrate metabolism, which is why so many people use low-carb diets to heal from Candida albicans. Now remember, he's literally saying that these pathogens are raised on eggs, not on a nutrient found in eggs, but on eggs, okay?
Their system. That's how it works. So you can get your best medical information out there.
Like some organisms living in your body can survive on lactate and other energy substrates that are created from the byproducts of digestion. Okay, but remember, these organisms, besides maybe small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, pathogens like parasites and viruses generally do not feed on whole foods, okay? But bacteria can. Okay, these viruses, they feed on the end products of metabolism and digestion, okay? After the food's already broken down.
Alternative medicine or your best healer or your best advisor in medical health, and they won't tell you which bugs or bugs that are responsible for this, responsible for all your illnesses and how eggs feed these bugs. So this...
It's probably because there's really not any actual evidence that eggs feed these bugs, especially not the way this guy is saying. And beyond that, okay, this is like an appeal to authority in a weird way, where he's like, the pharmaceutical industry is against you and trying to kill you, and they don't want you to know that fucking eggs are the root cause of all diseases. Even though I'm like drinking raw eggs while I make this, which by the way, I'm kind of still... I've been eating eggs and raw eggs for quite some time now. Not to mention there's these carnivore communities who have like, basically they've done egg fasts and shit like that to reverse their autoimmune disease. I had psoriasis and irritable bowel syndrome for a couple of years, and going vegan actually made it worse. And I actually solved my chronic autoimmune conditions, and I have had an ex-girlfriend who had fibromyalgia, and we solved it eating plenty of eggs. We just went paleo. All of our autoimmune conditions went away because, well, eggs are not the cause. But anyway.
This is critical information. It's
like, so your doctor doesn't know fucking eggs are killing you. Therefore, you know, yeah, okay. Yet some kind of freaking supernatural spirit giving you this advice, they know, but not the doctors and scientists and stuff. And by the way, it's true that like mainstream medicine, they don't have the tools generally to help you unless the doctors actually study in their spare time. But make no mistake, like medical doctors usually get in the field and go through all that pain and time and struggle, you know, in medical school and whatnot, because they want to help people. They just aren't given the tools necessary. Now, pharmaceutical companies, on the other hand, yeah, I don't want to say anything specific, but let's just say they may be more for profit and not really for your health.
Important. If you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition of any kind and your doctor finally said, hey, it's autoimmune, or you went online and looked and it's autoimmune, whatever that is, what that means without anybody telling you is that you have a condition where you have a pathogen inside the body causing problems, creating neurotoxins, creating dermatoxins.
Okay, so it's true that viruses like the Epstein-Barr can definitely cause autoimmune symptoms. However, the most common cause of autoimmune symptoms is generally some type of food intolerance. It usually starts with antibiotic usage, and what can happen is your gut bacteria that you built up over years and decades is usually responsible for breaking down plant foods in particular. And digesting them. Literally, plant foods are entirely digested by bacteria in your intestine. That's actually the cause of farting. Whereas foods like eggs and meat are mostly broken down and turned into a liquid known as chyme in the stomach by the stomach acid. Plant foods are moved through your stomach almost virtually unchanged from the way that you chewed them. And we know this through intestine tube studies where they have to take out part of the intestine and you can actually see the food after it passes the stomach, what happens to it. So yeah, plant foods are mostly digested in the intestine, and if you wipe out the bacteria using antibiotics, now it can be really hard to start digesting those plants again. And so people either have to start very, very slowly. And by the way, probiotics and random prebiotics don't really help. And now there's this new gimmick of like postbiotic supplements, and they're all basically just trying to sell you crap you don't need. But really, either people slowly start adding back in these fibrous plant foods until they build the capacity to digest it again, or they can just do an elimination diet like carnivore or paleo, like I did, and just avoid symptoms altogether. And you'll see the vast majority of people with autoimmune conditions, they have a kind of prerequisite of antibiotic usage or gut problems. And going on paleo or carnivore usually completely resolves these symptoms: fibromyalgia, psoriasis, lupus. You'd be surprised. And a lot of these people, the majority of them, include eggs as part of their diet. It's usually red meat, eggs, and salt. Okay. Some of them, though, have intolerances to eggs. That's a common food allergy. Yeah. So what can also happen, though, is certain foods, specifically possibly nightshade vegetables that have solanine and capsicum, and other things too, certain, like if you can't digest whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, what can happen is these foods pass the stomach mostly undigested, and they don't have the bacteria to digest it in the intestine. And then it can actually irritate the gut lining. And what can happen is parts of these foods can pass the gut lining undigested, okay? And then because you have undigested food particles, whether that's, it could even just be the irritation in the gut lining from these whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. You may not feel pain in your intestine, but a lot of people do feel cramping and they shit blood. This can set off an immune system reaction and actually cause things like hives, things like skin conditions, eczema, and things like lupus and these other things. These can cause all sorts of strange issues to happen as a result of an autoimmune trigger being triggered by foods not being fully digested. And this makes sense when you see people that aren't a part of these crazy fringe communities, whether it's like raw veganism or this medical medium, drink your celery juice, take his supplements, and be a spiritual kundalini person, taking health advice from some spiritual entity that you can't actually even prove exists. Usually people find, no matter what the protocol is, raw veganism usually takes care of all these food intolerances. autoimmune paleo diet, sometimes keto to a certain degree, unless they're eating these like keto approved breads and shit, or carnivore. But generally speaking, it's not the eggs that make a difference. I spent thousands of dollars on all these like parasite cleanses. None of that shit helped. The only thing that helped is removing the foods that were triggering my psoriasis, and eggs were not one of them. I'm drinking eggs right now. I have like nothing wrong with me. Most people report feeling better than they ever have in their life when they eat eggs, meat, salt, fruit, maybe.
It's like if it's eczema or psoriasis, that's a pathogen creating a toxin that floats to the skin.
Like, he has no evidence to support that claim that eczema and psoriasis are a pathogen moving up to the skin. I thought this at first. I actually found... I used to listen to fuckers like this when I had my psoriasis, and I did all sorts. I spent so much fucking money, time, energy, and focused on, I gotta cleanse the pathogens and stuff, doing all sorts of shit, eating bentonite clay, all sorts of crazy shit. And it turns out eating meat and eggs and removing all the harder to digest plant foods, that was the solution. Maybe eating some like cooked broccoli and like some fruit or whatever was fine, but yeah, eggs had nothing to do with this. Pathogens had nothing to do with this, and this guy has no evidence. And on top of that, there's so many fucking people, myself, my ex-girlfriend, family members, clients that I work with, who eat a shit ton of eggs and don't have this issue. We solve psoriasis and eczema without eliminating eggs or worrying about Epstein-Barr.
This is advanced information. Now, if you eat eggs,
this is dumbass information, if you ask me. Not advanced information. This is enlightening information to people who hardly even have a beginner understanding of physiology. But let's face it, the mainstream medical communities and mainstream nutrition communities, they don't really care about what causes diseases. They believe the only thing that matters is calories in versus calories out, which is not true in regards to autoimmune conditions. But like, just because the mainstream medical system isn't good doesn't mean that this like medical medium guy who claims to be a supernatural channeler of health information from the spirit realm has any kind of advanced information that you're not aware of. This is nonsense.
You're eating them, or you ate them in the past, you're feeding that pathogen. You're
feeding that pathogen. Let's go. Raw eggs.
Keeping you sick, and that's what's going to keep you sick. Look, the industry.
I'm so fucking sick. Raw eggs.
As a food source for all the bugs that are keeping everybody down, disempowering women and men.
Look, let's say a lab did, raise an army of superbugs and they raised them on eggs, okay? Here's the thing. When you eat eggs, okay? So first of all, there are people that have, ate a shit ton of eggs in one sitting, and they had undigested eggs in their stool, okay? But that's not a common occurrence, especially if you eat a normal amount of eggs, like most people, 4 eggs in the morning. Or if you're like me, I eat a whole dozen of eggs at once, usually. Sometimes more. I ate 16 eggs in one sitting the other night. And I've never seen eggs in my stool. Eggs, again, they don't just like sit in your fucking stomach and rot like these dumbasses will say. If you think for 1 second that eggs just go in your body and pathogens immediately start feeding on them in your stomach, okay, you probably don't understand how stomach acid works, the symptoms of low stomach acid, and how larger peptides of protein are broken down into smaller peptides and then amino acids, okay? In order for pathogens to feed on eggs, viruses don't feed on whole foods, okay? They feed on certain macronutrients specifically, whether that's a carbohydrate, a fiber of some kind, an amino acid usually, like lactate, alanine, beta-alanine, lactate, carnosine, something, an amino acid from the food, but they don't feed on whole foods. This is really strange how he's like the egg, the whole egg specifically. And he's not just saying like an amino acid from the egg or some kind of usable energy that a virus or a bacteria would be able to feed on, okay? Even cancer cells, they feed on a particular byproduct of respiration and metabolism, okay, according to Professor Thomas Seyfried. So to say that, pathogens feed on an egg or a piece of meat, it doesn't make any sense for anybody who understands, basic food metabolism and digestion. This is crazy. Like if he said like, okay, the Epstein-Barr virus or whatever, these pathogens, they feed on, an amino acid from like glutamine, for example, from the breakdown of the food. That's one thing. Or if he says, that they can consume, that they can feed on sucrose or glucose or lactose or something. Like that would make sense because bacteria in your intestine, remember, they ferment lactose or they ferment fermentable carbohydrates. There's some amino acids that can be fermented by bacteria and whatnot. But to say that a virus feeds on eggs, like just eggs, it sounds like a crackpot theory that someone came up with when they were stoned. And this is not an educated person saying this. And to believe these things, you have to be very, you haven't even taken a baseline level nutrition class. Something must be wrong with you.
Actually,
it's crazy.
People,
how can people believe this shit?
Children, keeping them sick. That's what they did.
Look,
they did that
this is a appeal to emotion.
This
guy is not trying to use logic or rational thinking. This guy is trying to make you feel wronged. He's trying to make you feel like you're suffering due to big pharma's greed and profits, and there's a grand conspiracy, and you're the one directly paying for it, and you're a victim. He's like purposely getting into a victim mentality so you could rally against these people who literally probably never did any of this nonsense, legitimately. Remember, I'm eating raw eggs as I say this.
And that's what's keeping you sick, and that's what's going to
Holy
keep you
shit.
sick. Look, the industries...
It's really hard for me to watch
in
this.
Labs as a food source for all the bugs that are keeping everybody down, disempowering women and men, actually hurting people, keeping them sick, hurting children, keeping them sick. That's what they did. They did that without your permission. No town hall meeting, no vote, no anything. This was done without your decisions involved. So eggs were actually ruined because of this, okay? And before all of this, eggs were probably a fine food to eat. Why not?
This is hilarious.
In the 1950s, they didn't know why all these people were sick. They were pouring.
I can't believe people believe this crap.
They've never seen before.
What bothers me the most is that the vast majority of the population are so in the dark of basic knowledge and I would say common sense, but I don't think common sense really even means anything, really. Because really common sense and common knowledge these days is bullshit like this, okay? Just like people lack critical thinking skills. Anything that gets people's emotions going, I was like me. I feel like I was wrongfully diagnosed with severe mental illness as a child, and I was put on dangerous amounts of medication for a whole decade, and I used to feel really wronged by it. I used to feel really angry at pharmaceutical companies and shit, and think that doctors were against me. And then, information like this used to get me going, those damn, crooked, pharmaceutical companies or whatever. But I've since, kind of developed a brain, okay? I grew a brain, y'all. And my brain ran on, I grew my brain on eggs. I raised my fucking brain on eggs, y'all, okay? And there are actual nutrients that the brain actually grows on. There's evidence for that, okay? And then I realized, you know what, really, any kind of, health influencer that pushes this kind of shit used to get me irritated. Fucking pharmaceutical companies. And that's what this guy's trying to do. He's trying to get all of you people who feel wronged by the pharmaceutical companies to get angry so that you can, completely disregard critical thinking and off your emotions be persuaded into believing this crap. It has no basis in physiology. But like I was saying, I used to be like that until I started to think about it. I'm like, well, because I've actually trained doctors and nurses, in my personal training practice, and they all want to help people. Okay, you don't get into a profession like medicine or nursing, go through all that school, okay, spend all that money on that degree, and then go through the pain and the sleep deprivation and stuff that comes with medical residency unless you want to help people. That's a horrible profession. And if you think for 1 second that doctors, they make all this money, it's all worth the pain they go through, then you obviously don't know like the amount of money that they make compared to the struggle they go through. It's pretty bad. Actually, I guarantee you this medical medium guy, okay, who in my opinion he's on the caliber of conspiracy bullshit that Alex Jones is. This guy makes way more money than medical doctors, and he is pushing bullshit, and he's directly profiting from this. Fuck this, man.
Old doctors back in the day.
Look, I don't care if you eat eggs or not. What I care about is people who just they believe in stupid fucking shits like this, and they're so convinced by it. And meanwhile, there's all sorts of really obvious holes in their arguments. It doesn't add up to reality.
When they were already
how can
9 years
people
old,
be so oblivious?
Way back then, and I talked to them. And they told me how it all worked and what was happening.
What? What did you say?
Pouring in. Symptoms they'd never seen before. I'd even talked to old doctors back in the day when they were already 9 years old after practicing way back then. And I talked to them. And they told me how it all worked and what was happening. And the autoimmune theory was just a way to confuse people.
Okay, so he's saying he talked to doctors way back then that by word of mouth told him that autoimmune the autoimmune hypothesis is a hypothesis. This guy doesn't even know what. So look, if he's saying that the autoimmune idea, the autoimmune philosophy or concept doesn't have evidence to support it, is what he's trying to say. Okay, well look, then that means it's a hypothesis. A hypothesis is what you start with. It's an idea. It's a working idea on how to see the world or how to see a certain subject that's not fully supported by evidence yet. A theory is an idea and a philosophy and a concept that actually does have adequate evidence to support it, and it actually works in practical application. So if this is truly not supported by evidence, like this guy is trying to say, this guy doesn't know what he's really talking about, then it would be considered a hypothesis, not a theory. A theory has more evidence. A hypothesis doesn't have a lot of evidence. And this guy's trying to say that he talked to doctors back in the day, and they told him that the autoimmune idea is a bunch of bullshit, okay? So far, everything he said is this is a conspiracy. Fucking pharmaceutical companies are trying to fuck you up. Eggs, are the primary food for these viruses and pathogens. And I talked to a bunch of doctors back in the day that told me this was true. And I'm the medical medium channeling, information from the spiritual realm. Okay, how the hell do people just believe this crap? This is why I'm like, why do I even make videos anymore? The people that have common sense should already know what's up, and then people who don't are just gonna think I'm full of shit. This is they're like, no, I want to believe the freaking Kundalini spiritual crazy guy. Okay.
To protect science and research, because science and research has to protect itself, and it uses you and womankind to do so. Not in all fields. I'm talking about chronic illness, so just know this. Not in all fields. Think about technology back in the 1950s, late 1940s, right? Think about technology. Think about the phones. Go watch an old movie. I know I say this a lot. Watch an old movie and look at technology back in 1950, all right? You'll be in shock because we're so used to tech now. We're so used to life now. We're so used to what's happening now, okay? When you realize technology was where it was at, then you have to realize medicine was where technology was at back then too. It was in the dark ages, okay? That was the dark ages of medicine. That was where theories were born. Just like now, theories...
Look, hypotheses were born. Theories are not the beginning of a working understanding in the scientific fields. Hypotheses are the first step. Hypothesis was born, not theory. God damn it, Google searched the definition of hypothesis versus theory. Okay? This is a huge thing. If somebody keeps using a word like theory, but they're using it incorrectly, okay? On top of the fact that this guy literally claims to be channeling all this information from the spirit realm, okay? And then I get people in my comments who are so convinced this guy knows what he's talking about. This is an IQ problem, damn it. This is a fucking IQ problem, okay? Hypothesis was born. Another thing, we're still pretty much in the dark ages of medicine, okay? And, okay, this guy's literally trying to say that they were in the dark ages of medicine when the autoimmune hypothesis was born, okay? Not theory, hypothesis. And then he's also trying to say, but they had the technology to freaking manufacture viruses on eggs, okay? Like, look, if you have a fucking dog, okay? A dog is a living animal that can digest and consume eggs, okay? But a virus does not have the digestive capacity, the metabolism required to literally feed on a whole egg, okay? This is so fucking stupid to say that a virus is it's living on an egg, okay? Maybe an amino acid or a carbohydrate, but a bacteria can survive on an amino acid or a carbohydrate, okay? But a virus? What the fuck?
Theories are here now. We're still, in the dark ages in many ways because...
This guy's in the dark ages of intelligence.
Fuck. They still don't even know what causes chronic illness and autoimmune. But think about as far as back in the late 1940s, early 1950s. Well, that's when the autoimmune theory was birthed.
Hypothesis, you fuck ass.
That's
fuck.
when it was born. Okay, so if you're someone who's young right now,
bro,
someone that's already been to a couple doctors, you got a little bit of eczema, and you're realizing
this is
it's
stupid,
or you got some swelling on the body, or you got something you're getting a diagnosis of lupus, or you just got symptoms that are actually being classified as autoimmune, or you're dealing with a little fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, or whatever it is.
Bro, seriously, what is it? It's all eggs?
In the autoimmune family, or Lyme disease now pushed to autoimmune. I'm going to go into that in more detail.
Yeah, Lyme disease. Lyme disease is there's a lot of evidence that Lyme disease is definitely caused by viral infection. Okay, but you can't lump all that together with these. Look, chronic fatigue syndrome. Okay, I'm glad that they called a syndrome. Okay, all of these things, yeah, they're not well understood by mainstream medicine, for sure. And yeah, pharmaceutical industry and mainstream medicine, it's sick care. It's trying to treat symptoms with drugs, yes. But that doesn't mean that your damn, egg theory and all this, your egg hypothesis is not a theory at all, okay? This is not evidence to support your egg idea, okay? This is all disinformation, fucking pharmaceutical companies, they're all bad and freaking, they don't care about your health. The autoimmune idea that's used in mainstream medicine is nonsense. Look, I agree with all that, okay? But then you go ahead and say, oh, freaking eggs are the cause, and viral infection is the cause of all this shit. Meanwhile, I'm over here, I freaking had debilitating irritable bowel syndrome, freaking psoriasis, and all sorts of other conditions that I healed while eating a shit ton of eggs, okay? And removing the eggs and eating a shit ton of grains definitely made it worse. And then, of course, you have thousands of people who eat nothing but meat and eggs and salt. Not to say that's the ideal diet, and they resolve these problems. So, yeah, and I think even the people in the repeat community they eat a lot of eggs, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong. But, yeah, this is nonsense.
Whatever you're dealing with, okay?
This guy is the reason why so many medical doctors and mainstream health practitioners look down on alternative health because of charlatans like this who push these crazy ass ideas that are not grounded in any kind of logic or reality or any of that. You know, and I have videos talking about some of the healthiest populations actually eat the most eggs. So, yeah.
Autoimmune is a theory still. The word is a theory. The concept
Hypothesis! Fucker!
is a theory. Your sickness is real. Your symptoms are real. They are very real.
Bro, what you're experiencing is real, but the name is false. The pharmaceutical companies, they're trying to brainwash you. They're trying to make you feel like your symptoms are your fault. The pharmaceutical industry, they did some elaborate freaking conspiracy freaking experiment like damn Nazis back in the 1940s in the dark ages of medicine. Yeah, and there's a conspiracy against your health. You need to drink celery juice and all this crazy shit, you know, and kill the damn viruses that are feeding on whole eggs, even though viruses lack the metabolism necessary to even digest eggs. I get my information from God. The damn channeling my spirit realm freaking professors of immunology from the spirit realm. I've got 5 billion fucking subscribers on YouTube, and I'm a charlatan, and everyone believes this, and there's no hope for humanity. Fuck.
More real than the industry lets you feel or know. Because that's how it is.
This is an appeal to emotion.
The word is a theory. The concept is a theory.
Damn it.
Your sickness is real. Your symptoms are real. They are very real, way more real than the industry lets you feel or know, because that's how it is.
Yeah, that's how it is, okay? Your fucking illness is so bad, it's so severe, and the industry wants you to feel that suffering, okay? You know, you're suffering at, you know, the pharmaceutical industry, they're conducting these experiments and they're profiting at the expense of your pain and suffering and emotions. Wow. This is what's wrong with humanity, is everyone is acting and reacting from their emotions rather than critical thinking. And most people are legitimately so brainwashed by emotional bullshit that there's nothing that anyone like me can do about it. Because they probably already clicked off this video. They're like, no, I don't want to hear this guy talking logic and shit. Fuck no. My fucking emotions matter. My freaking symptoms matter. It's like, okay, have fun with your like wild goose chase of celery juice and supplements, and I'm healing. I'm on a journey of healing. It's like, okay, cool. Guess what? I was on a journey of healing, but 3 days of eliminating the actual food trigger that was triggering my immune symptoms, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. And it depends on you. You might not be triggered by those foods, but after 3 days of removing the trigger, I was good. I was golden. Nothing, you know. I still eat eggs. I'm good. Okay, but no, all of his subscribers are like, no, I'm on a journey of healing, you know, for years and years. Pharmaceutical industry, they don't like me. Oh no, it's a conspiracy. This medical medium guy, he's the truth. Like, okay, 3 days of elimination diet and you're good. But nope, I'm wrong.
It's autoimmune. They're saying your body's attacking itself. They're saying your body's destroying itself. So that's what they're doing. So think about that for a minute.
Yeah, it's wrong, okay? It's wrong. It doesn't mean that eggs are like the grand conspiracy here.
You go to a doctor. It's not the doctor's fault.
It's not the doctor's fault.
It's not. Doctors are amazing. It's not about the doctor. But
He says it's not the doctor's fault. Doctors are working for the industry. Okay, no. Your doctor's not usually equipped with the knowledge necessary on these topics, because doctors usually, they don't follow communities of people who've actually healed their diseases because they think, oh, that's not scientific enough. And most of them don't have enough time, let alone energy, at the end of a hard work day to go back and actually follow some of the scientific literature. Not to mention there's so many new studies coming out every single day, it's impossible to stay on top of it. And that's the reason why, because they don't have enough time and energy to self-study, and usually they don't. They just use whatever they learned in medical school and treat you with drugs. But at the end of the day, doctors usually, they get in this shit because they care about your health. It's just that they can't help you unless they actually study certain things. And you know, in their spare time. But it doesn't mean that they're corrupt. The doctors themselves are not like evil. Okay, it's important to know that. I used to think that too, but they're not.
And the doctor's gonna be like, yeah, you have an autoimmune condition. That's what you have. So now you're making your protein shakes. Now you're making your smoothies. Now you're having your hard-boiled eggs on salads. Now,
yeah, and look, this guy, he showed like a smoothie with greens, and this is his whole stick is celery juice.
You're doing all this because you're trying to eat healthy, go to a good functional med. Hard-boiled eggs on salad. So now you're making your protein shakes. Now you're making your smoothies. Now you're having your hard-boiled eggs on salads. Now you're doing all this because you're trying to eat healthy, go to a good functional med.
I don't think you're really benefiting from eating salads outside of the mineral content that they contain and maybe the polyphenols. But yeah, I don't think eating salads is really healthy.
Listen, doctor, and they're like, get off of gluten, get off of this, get off of that. But
good advice.
You have an autoimmune condition. They're still following that 19.
Yeah. So here's the thing just on that. If you have an autoimmune condition and you go to a functional medicine practitioner, 9 times out of 10, they're going to want you to eat all these plant foods and shit. And you have to understand, like, plant foods are not bad. That's not what I'm saying. But when you have autoimmune condition, your body, either your digestive system or your immune system, it's being triggered by a particular food. Usually it's a plant food. It's usually a family of foods. This could be nightshade plants. This could be potatoes. This could be beans. This could be legumes. This could be nuts and seeds. This could be eggs. It could be peanuts. It could be shellfish. It could be a combination of all these things. But overall, just seeing, plant-based diet is healthy. Eggs are unhealthy. Or like, salads are healthy, or even, consuming a lot of peppers is good. Okay. That is bad to look at it that way. You have to understand, you have to look at it as what individual foods might be triggering my autoimmune disease. That's what you need to look at. Okay. Following this pathogen idea is not going to get you to where you want. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can heal like I have.
1950s
and all my clients.
Where your body's attacking
hypothesis.
Following that 1950s theory.
Hypothesis.
Condition. They're still following that 1950s theory where your body's attacking itself.
It's a hypothesis.
See, autoimmune means your body's immune system is attacking the glands and organs.
So most functional medicine practitioners are actually following the research of the last 20 years that is poorly done that suggests you need to eat a lot of plant foods. And the reason why people don't heal when they go to functional medicine practitioners is because plant foods are unconditionally seen as healthy. Just like I was just mentioning, you can't just eat a so-called healthy diet. You need to find what particular foods are triggering for me. Okay? But those people tell you, no, you need prebiotics, you need the fiber and all this other shit. And it's like that actually is the advice that's fueling this problem, because they're telling you to eat all these foods that are supposed to be healthy on paper that your body doesn't agree with. Okay, and I do recommend reading the book The Fiber Menace, just because that's an extremist view, just like this guy's giving, but it will give you some, maybe some ideas on how fiber might be damaging your body.
That's what it means. That's a theory that occurred back in the...
It's a hypothesis, you fuck ass. Hypothesis.
Of the 1940s and the 1950s. That was a theory that came up because science...
I just don't understand how this guy can be all like, yeah, man, science was in the dark ages back then. They couldn't even tell what autoimmune conditions were being caused by. Yet somehow they're feeding viruses with a whole egg? What the fuck? No, viruses are not able to survive on whole foods. Okay? Maybe the DNA, did they inject DNA and feed it on the DNA, or what the fuck? What part of the egg?
Research had to protect itself because millions of patients were coming in with new symptoms for the first...
What did he just say?
That was a theory that came up because science and research had to protect itself because millions of patients were coming in.
Okay, so science and research had to protect itself. But if there's no evidence, according to this guy, then what are they trying to protect exactly?
With new symptoms for the first time in...
Another thing we got to keep in mind is antibiotic use was, antibiotics were just starting to be created, if I'm not mistaken, in the early 1900s. So to me, and by the way, I don't even think that this whole idea that autoimmune conditions were just now starting to arise at that time, but if they were, antibiotics like penicillin and these things were just now being, beginning. Also, refined sugar, vegetable oil consumption, all of these things were just now, rising dramatically in prominence. So to say that it's all, the egg experiment is just hilarious. There's so many things that are happening. But I guarantee you, the antibiotic usage of this time, penicillin being discovered and whatnot, that might actually kind of be, maybe it's that.
In history. So please note.
Maybe a particular method of juicing, okay? Maybe that's to blame for the autoimmune illness. Maybe, just saying.
That.
There's some alternative quackery for you out of my mouth. Even though it's not quackery, there's legitimate concerns with those things.
And there's no science proving
What the
autoimmune yet.
Did you just show someone getting beat up?
So please know
what is this?
that.
Why?
There's no science
What
proving
the fuck was
autoimmune
that?
yet.
Some dude getting beat up in the snow? Or is that like
And there's no science proving autoimmune yet, the autoimmune theory. There's no science or research that can actually...
what was that? That clip, bro?
history. So please know that.
What is that
And there's
clip
no
of?
science
Someone tell me what
proving
that clip is
autoimmune
of.
yet, the autoimmune theory. There's no science or research that can actually prove the autoimmune...
Okay, so look. This guy has no clue what science is. Health science is not about proving that something is true. Okay? It's not about proof. There is nothing in health and medicine and nutrition science or exercise science. When we're dealing with actual dynamic biological organisms like the human being, okay, it's not about proof, it's about evidence. This is a number one problem with people trying to talk about science on YouTube or whatever, okay? Health science, medical science, disease science, exercise science, okay? Human physiology is about gathering evidence, looking at what's happening in the real world, and then trying to draw correlations using mechanistic evidence, intervention trials, and real life populations of people getting certain outcomes to try to figure out what's most likely the truth, okay? But you cannot prove anything, and that's the thing that people can't wrap their head around. Everybody thinks that, like, oh, science is about proof, and like, if there's no proof, then the blah, 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 okay? It's not about proof. The second thing is, and what he's really trying to say is there's no evidence, but this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's trying to say there's no evidence to support the autoimmune hypothesis, and he's wrongfully using the word theory, okay? So many red flags in this, and people are like, oh my god, he's like the truth. Like, no, he's not. He's crazy, and he's a charlatan, and he's appealing to emotion. He's using the same scare tactics and emotional tactics that these mainstream news, the mainstream media uses, okay? All these alternative people that believe in this, they think they're like, oh, the mainstream media is out to get me, and they're trying to brainwash me. This guy is doing the same shit. You just can't see it because you're so caught up in your emotions, and you're into the alternative view. This is literally not an alternative view. This is the same thing that mainstream media does. It's just a different shade. This is polarity. You need to learn about the 7 Hermetic principles. This is not different than mainstream
that's
media.
How it works.
Oh my god.
Proving autoimmune yet, the autoimmune theory. There's no science or research that can actually prove the autoimmune.
There's no science or research that can prove that eggs are causing it either. Where's your fucking proof? Where's your proof? This whole time he's just been like, the pharmaceutical companies are trying to fuck you over. And then he's like, they did conspiracy, they did like fucking experiments in their labs behind your back without your knowledge, without your vote. They fed these crazy pathogens with eggs. Where's your proof? There's no proof to support the autoimmune theory. It's a hypothesis. Fuck.
Okay, that's how it works. You can look all you want. They'll still say your body's attacking itself, and they'll talk about an autoantibody, but they could never find that autoantibody causing harm.
That's actually incorrect. There actually are some autoimmune conditions where they find an antibody, but for the most part, yeah, it's not entirely an accurate working understanding of how autoimmune conditions work, for sure. But this doesn't support your damn egg theory, your egg hypothesis, your egg bullshit.
It's not possible. It's still a complete and total theory.
It's a hypothesis! Fuck!
Farce, actually. It's basically a ruse played on you. And I'll tell you why. It's to train you that you have a faulty body, that your sickness is your fault.
Do you see, you think that it's the pharmaceutical companies that are brainwashing you? How can people not? This is manipulation. This is he's trying to use your emotions to persuade you. Nowhere in this video did he say anything that provides some kind of tangible information that you could use to critically reflect on how valid his thing is. All of this is pharmaceutical companies bad, eggs bad, therefore eggs are, this is not about this is all an emotional manipulation campaign. That's all this is. This is literally the same thing that mainstream media does, and you motherfuckers can't tell. It's crazy.
It's not a pathogen.
This is crazy.
Find
Bro.
Autoantibody causing harm. It's not possible. It's still a complete and total theory. A farce, actually. It's basically a ruse played on you. And I'll tell you why. It's to train you that you have a faulty body, that your sickness is your fault. It's not a pathogen. It's not the Epstein-Barr virus. It's not this. It's not that. The industry doesn't want you knowing these truths. The industry doesn't want you knowing any of that. The industry wants to keep you sick. That's how the money machine works.
He's like, yeah, these people want you to think that your illness is your fault. So he's making these people seem like the enemy so that you could feel comfortable thinking that this guy's your savior. He's like, oh no, they want you to think that your illness is your fault and your body's broken. And that's, you may not realize it, but subconsciously planting the seed that, this guy is your comfort. It's okay. Your illness is not your fault. It's the fucking pharmaceutical company's fault, and I have the answers. Okay, you can buy my books, buy my supplements in the background or whatever it is. Drink fucking celery juice. This guy actually, from what I've seen, he actually caused a some kind of what is the word? He basically drove celery out of stock. Ooh, that's no pun intended. He drove celery out of stock chronically when he first kind of came into prominence. That was something I had read somewhere. Maybe it's wrong, but that's funny.
You've heard of that, right?
The bugs that create all these
The
illnesses
fucking bugs.
were raised in labs and somehow
They're raised in labs, guys.
escaped those labs 80, 90,
They escaped those labs.
60 years ago. And these bugs were raised on eggs. If you don't have a chronic
They're raised on eggs.
symptom, you don't have a chronic illness, you feel great, nothing's going on at any level, eat the eggs. And then if something comes up down the road, get rid of the eggs. Okay.
So now, yeah, if something comes up down the road, blah, blah, blah. Look, okay. If you find the trigger to your autoimmune symptoms, okay, it doesn't matter whether you eat eggs or not. Okay, some people might have an allergy to eggs. They might be triggered by eggs. If your digestion's not up to par, maybe you can't digest eggs very well, which is unlikely, but it happens. The other thing is Epstein-Barr, the virus, this guy seems to be very vocal about. Yeah, it can cause chronic fatigue syndrome, and it can cause a lot of autoimmune conditions. But, whether eggs really has anything to do with Epstein-Barr even, I don't know. But the vast majority of people with autoimmune conditions, I've worked with dozens of clients who have specifically consulted with me about this because they see that I've healed mine and yada yada, and they watch my videos and like, oh, this guy isn't biased, and he's also not a mainstream medicine shill per se, but he's not a quack either, right? And dozens of people I've helped eliminate their autoimmune conditions simply by finding the trigger. I have them log their food and chronometer for a while, and we talk, have a long 1 to 2 hour discussion about their symptoms, and then we find the foods that could potentially trigger their symptoms. We remove them from their diet after a week of logging so we could really see what they eat realistically. And then usually their symptoms go away by removing those foods. And then we slowly add the foods back one by one. And usually they find that they've been spending like hundreds of dollars in supplements a month that they didn't even need. And it turns out all along they just needed eat adequate protein, 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight per day, from whole animal food sources, usually including eggs, but usually red meat. Remove the trigger foods, and then eat whatever carbs and fat sources that they can tolerate to their caloric and energy needs. And then make sure you get whatever micronutrients that you think you might need within the context of your diet, because micronutrients are macronutrient dependent. It's basically evidence-based nutrition, but with the consideration of autoimmunity, food intolerances, and these types of things. This guy is completely full of shit, okay? Viruses, yeah, they can contribute to a lot of weird symptoms you may not have noticed, but you can usually find antibodies to the viruses. Yes, if you have a viral infection, you will find you'll be able to detect that. The other thing is viruses, they don't survive on whole foods, okay? They can survive in certain they don't feed on foods. Like if you eat eggs, the virus is not like feeding on the eggs. You're digesting those eggs. And if your stomach acid is robust enough, at least in my opinion, because I believe in the terrain theory, which is like a branch of the hygiene theory of illness, that basically your body, if your stomach acid is strong enough, it should be able to kill off bacteria and viruses that you consume in your foods. But nonetheless, I just downed 6 raw eggs while fucking watching this. And I've been doing this ever since I recovered from my damn autoimmune condition that was literally just caused by beans, whole grains, nuts and seeds not being digested correctly. And, apparently there's a bunch of comments in his videos where they're all like, yeah, I like, following the celery juice thing, I feel so much better, and I'm on the path of healing and whatnot. It's like, look, if you're on the path to healing, that doesn't mean shit, okay? If you go on this elimination diet, you go carnivore, you go paleo, whatever it is, even raw vegan, you remove the trigger, your symptoms will go away within 3 days. You don't need to be on this path that never ends, But most people, they don't actually want to heal. They want to they're really fascinated by all this information and the what ifs about health, not like actually living their life and just feeling healthy. So they go into charlatans like this that always have bullshit information. And Vegetable Police was all about this too for a while. That guy, definition of hypochondriac. Okay, is that it? Yeah, this is bullshit. If you guys, yeah, so it's sad, but it's also kind of funny that people actually buy into this nonsense. Even if I didn't have like a working understanding of physiology, I think I'd still be a bit skeptical. Like, the thing that bothers me most about this is not so much that this type of misinformation exists, but the fact that so many humans are susceptible to this type of misinformation simply by the nature of being easily manipulated by their emotions, okay? And it's blaringly obvious to me that, the mainstream media, and I don't want to go into specifics, but a lot of these like really big events that the mainstream media blows up, you know, in politics and all this stuff, people are like emotionally reacted to it, and they're controlled by it. They're persuaded by the appeal to emotion in mainstream media. But then these same people are like, nah, mainstream media is controlled by the higher powers and all this shit. They are also actually being emotionally manipulated by these types of conspiracies and things, including medical medium. He's literally the, you know, the Alex Jones of the freaking nutrition world. So anyway, look, leave your question in the comments down below. If you have specific questions or you have anything, look, address my shit point by point. I don't want to hear people, you know, telling me I'm full of crap and this and that without being constructive. Okay. I want people, if they think I'm full of crap, I want actual points that I got wrong and reasons why I'm full of crap. But I think that's another issue. Like, people don't have intelligence. They don't have, like, something's wrong with their brain. Maybe it's the damn, you know, maybe it's an egg deficiency. Maybe they need some more omega-3s, some more vitamin K2, whatever it is in eggs that you think, you know, help with freaking brain power. You probably need some of that. But yeah, leave your questions and comments. If you have any if you have any videos you want me to react to, post them down below and I'll react to them. All right. This is my first time using OBS Studio or whatever to like actually record a reaction video. I think it came out pretty good outside of like the microphone issue. Talk to y'all next time.